one of our great sages and saints, Rupa Goswami, has stated that how much nectar there is in these syllables, Hare Krishna, or these words, Hare Krishna and Ram. There's unlimited potency, power, everything. It's actually the easiest method in this age to experience Krishna, or to experience God, to experience the love of God. It's something you can do at any time. Like if you're on the bus, if you're on the driving, if you're working, if you're doing anything, just if you can practice chanting Hare Krishna, and the chanting will manifest more and more as you practice. And there is something actually I've been doing for quite a few years, but sometimes not always succeeding, and that is rising very early in the morning to chant Hare Krishna. A lot of my spiritual mentors really make that as a very, I listened to actually 3 if not 4 over the last 2 days, giving me this message to rise early in the morning time to chant. And I rise reasonably early, but not where I want to be. I want to be at a certain time that I can actually get up and chant. Because when you chant, in the morning time like that, you have more energy and you have more access to the power of the holy name, and in that way, then you kind of like put a battery into your whole system for the day, and for the whole day you're just alive with the chanting of the holy name, because it's understood that there's so many things happen in the world, so many different items. I mean, like, how many newspapers are there in the world? There's 4 or 5 Irish dailies, maybe more British dailies, United States, Chinese, so many different Indian dailies, so many different newspapers, and they're all getting information about what's going on in the world. But that all of those information, like if you took up from 50 years ago, from 100 years ago, all the things that they've been speaking about have all finished, have all passed. And although there is a study of history, still, do we actually learn from history? I'm not sure. But anyway, so all of these things happen, and there's so much emphasis put on them. In fact, people spend their whole lives speaking about them. There's 24-hour news channels and everything. But more important than is just to get up in the morning and chant Hare Krishna and have the Hare Krishna mantra going throughout the day, because that will actually give us a much more eternal aspect on life. So with that in mind, I chose an actual chapter from Bhagavad Gita. It's the 15th chapter, and it's called The Yoga of the Supreme Person. And the reason I chose it is because it will give us some indication of where we are in this world in relation to everything else. It's said that when you have a map and you don't know where you are on the map, it's not really much good having a map like that, isn't it? Because you have a map, but where am I? Where is the point? And you know that you are here. So the yoga of the Supreme Person actually gives us that extra energy to understand that. And so I thought I would start with that. So I just want to start off with a prayer, a very short prayer. You could repeat after me. Amagina, Omaganya, Timirandasya, Kinanjana, Shalakaya, Chakshura, Unmilitam Yena, Tasmai Shri, Gurave Namaha. And it means I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisance unto that personality. And another prayer which I thought would be nice to say is, it's a prayer of communion among people. and it is praising everyone else. Sometimes we get kind of very self-focused, but we are so much in need of the mercy of other people for our spiritual development and for our sanity, for our well-being. And so this prayer explains that. It says, so you can repeat again. Vancha, Kalpa, Turubhyascha, Kripa, Sindhu, Evyacha, Patitanam, Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Means I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like the desire trees because they fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for all the fallen conditioned souls. Hare Krishna. So, the yoga of the Supreme Person. I won't read the Sanskrit. I'm just going to read the English, but it will mean that everyone will need to kind of pay attention as much as you can. It's easy in a sense, but it's meditative. Sometimes people speak about meditation, but the real meditation, but a very profound meditation is meditating on the words from the Bhagavad Gita. And this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who's speaking. It's not your favorite journalist or your favorite writer or favorite musician, the words of some great singer, songwriter. This is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the original singer, songwriter. Okay, everybody ready?
Yes.
Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree, and it has its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruit of actions of human society. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns. Therefore, one must seek the place and there surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything begun and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. That was the hard part. Because it's hard because it says that no one knows where this tree is, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But then it says, but with determination one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. So that's kind of like it's a paradox, You don't know where it is, but you have to cut it down. Anyway, the rest of the Bhagavad Gita, or this chapter, will explain how this is. Now, here is the qualifications one needs to understand spiritual life. So this is very, very important. Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. That supreme abode of mine is not illumined by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the 6 senses which include the mind. This is very important. The living entity in the material world carries his different conceptions of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of body and again quits it to take another. The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects. The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this. So we're trying to develop our eyes so that we can see all that is going on. It's so important to do this. And we're taking the indicators from Krishna, how to do this, how to use the tongue, and all the sense object, all the sense organs, to try to understand the nature of reality. The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. So which would anyone prefer? Which of those two categories would you like? Tell me. Those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization, who cannot see what is taking place, or those who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly? Which would you want? Second. Yes. So it's actually possible to be in that category of the second, to see all that's going on. I actually, to be honest with you, I really thought at one point in my life that no one had any answers or had any clarity about what was actually going on. You know, I went to university, I studied all these different great poets and literati and philosophers and so on. And there seemed to be lots and lots of contradictions going on. And no one seemed to be really sure. And even the professors who were speaking it, they also were not that sure. Although some of them I found much more very beneficial in the sense that I talked to them afterwards, because they're presenting a course, so they have to take different stances. But still, you know, it was very nice to. It was still quite bewildering as to what was actually going on. And even after spending several years in Krishna consciousness, I could see that, you know, my understanding was getting kind of much deeper and deeper and deeper. But eventually, when you actually see what is going on, what Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita, what's going on, it's like there's a verse up there actually which we took down, which I took down. But it's like the sun. Oh, it's here. Sorry, just came here for particular reason. It says. Oh no, this is another one. It's the one. It's actually the one I have at home. It's the sun which illuminates everything. Like the sun, which when one is which given the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, it lights up everything, just like the sun lights up everything in the daytime. You know, so that's been my personal experience with Bhagavad Gita, that it gives us the clarity for what is actually happening in the world, and therefore that gives us the energy to be fixed in that knowledge, you know, despite all the different things that are going on in the world. Like it's explained there that in text number 6, who are freed from all the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender. and who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association. I mean, that's pretty amazing, like, you know, because the soul is covered by the mind and by the intelligence and the and the false ego, or some people just call it the ego, you know, but it's the false ego, and in the false ego we identify with so many kind of unusual things. We think I'm Irish, I'm English, I'm a Japanese, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm black, I'm white. We have all these different identifications that are there, and but these are only temporary coverings of the body. It's not us. We're completely eternal. We're a different kind of entity altogether. We're spiritual, we're eternal, we're full of knowledge, full of bliss, and we are inhabiting this world. And we have an eternal relationship with the person who created everything. You know, there's an incredible eternal relationship going on. And the eternal person who created everything is called God in all different scriptures in the world. We call him Krishna. And he gives knowledge. That he's the one who's given the knowledge, because he's created the whole thing, but he's also created us. We are part of God. We have a specific incredible energy. And today some people, because they're not able to access that soul who we are, bewildered, some people commit suicide. They go into depression, and they find so many difficulties in the world, you know. And but if we can somehow or other get access how to access this nature of who we are, then all of these things go, and actual happiness, real happiness occurs. And it's the nature of the soul to be eternally full of knowledge and full of bliss. Can you imagine to be full of bliss? You know, that's really that's the energy. That's the place where we want to be. We get some indication of it in the chanting. Anybody here experience very high levels of spirituality during chanting? Hands up, anybody who does. Feels, you know, energy and, you know, real feelings of loving. I'm gonna put my hand up. Thank you. We do, isn't it? I mean, this is the area which gives us kind of that whole indication that it's really there. Krishna's actually there, and then Krishna actually comes then in this form of the Bhagavad Gita, and he gives us more clarification of who he is, and so therefore when we're chanting, we can understand more who God is, and therefore, as I said at the beginning, in these two words, in these syllables, there is unlimited spiritual potency. So, you know, the whole, you know, if we read even the whole Mahabharata, it's 100,000 verses, right? And it tells us about the activities of so many people. But then you have Srimad Bhagavatam, and then you have Chaitanya Charitamrita, who explain the whole activities of Krishna. You know, all his activities. So when we enter into this mantra, you know, we actually can associate with Krishna in these very incredible areas. You know, so this is to show how the potency of the holy name is there. Because if we don't do that, we will be looking for pleasure where else? In the material world. We'll be looking out for pleasure there. And because we're pleasure seeking, that's our nature. And generally, the material world has got a much bigger PR system than we have. You know, we don't have such a PR system to tell people, okay, come on in here. This is where all the pleasure is. In fact, usually in a spiritual society, there is definitely very stable systems there where people can go right from birth and become prepared to go back to the spiritual world at the end. Well, unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, a lot of those systems have been thrashed. You know, they've been thrashed. People growing up enter into very weird kind of sometimes familiar family situations or societal situations or you know, the list is endless of the difficulties that can influence a living entity just coming into this world. You know, from the age of 5, 6, they're exposed to such, you know, graphic, spiritual elements that very early on that people can get very, very confused. But the whole goal of the Krishna consciousness movement is to try to redress that balance. Actually, is to provide other means of entrance into the spiritual system, whereby the living entities or ourselves can practice in the world around us and can make spiritual progress. But we're trying to offer that as I say, our PR system is, maybe it's a little bit, I mean, Sumi's doing a really good job, and I'm Vikram with it, in you know, our PR system to try to bring people into the pleasures of Krishna consciousness. And for instance, next Friday evening here, we're going to have the Mantra Lounge, and next Saturday, we're going to have 10 hours of kirtan, even more, over in Irishtown, over in Ringsend. So that's our PR system. We're trying to promote this chanting so people can go there and actually experience the bliss of chanting Hare Krishna. The alternative is the material world, and there are so many outlets. Myself and my dear wife, we took a few days off there, and we went to one of the towns in rural Ireland near where one of our friends are, because we wanted to go to a place that was kind of like a rented apartment for 2 nights, and we wanted to go and see our friend nearby, you know, and because they live quite in the country, and at 4 o'clock this morning, somebody was banging on our door, you know, in one of these places. It was from one of the other apartments, and they were they had succumbed to the glories of some intoxicant or other. But basically, it was going on for most of the evening as well. I think it started at about 2 o'clock. You know, that was the time I was hoping to get up. You know, and I went from 2 o'clock to about 4 o'clock, and it was actually, the funny thing was I was talking with Ishani this morning about it, and like this was the so-called enjoyment, because this place, unfortunately, we didn't check the reviews, but it was where different groups come and they have their hen parties or their stag parties, you know. So that's the lesson for today. Always check the reviews. And they were experiencing like there was screaming going on at the top of their voice, and we were wondering, is this pleasure or is this pain? Are they screaming pain here? Are they having? Is there a World War III going on? But apparently it is supposedly pleasure. But and that's what people are being attracted to. You know, that's the that is. I mean, I'm not criticizing people or saying that people who are by nature pleasure seeking, but they're really seeking it in the wrong place. You know, because it's called pleasure in the mode of ignorance, basically. It's not what we need. It's not what's good for the soul, and because we're seeking the eternal pleasure, you know, and the reason that I also got into that is that in this world we have so many experiences, and they all seem very, 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 very important. And to some degree they are important. But the reality, and what's been explained here in the Bhagavad Gita, is that we've had the different experiences in different bodies for many, many times. So what makes this particular experience in this particular body so important, or that we give so much emphasis to? So the Bhagavad Gita explains that this is like almost like a dream, you know? It's like an illusion. And like someday we are the father, we are the daughter, we are the son in somebody. In the next body we're the father, the daughter, the son. You know, we keep on changing these bodies, and we're giving great importance to one particular set because we're in this body, but Bhagavad Gita explains that we've experienced millions of them, and therefore we shouldn't give so much attention to what's going on in this particular body, because we've been through it all before. So therefore, does that mean? Let me just develop this point a little bit further before I say something else. So therefore, this what's going on in this world is like a dream. Like for instance, when you're dreaming, anybody here ever dream? So we dream a lot. So we're dreaming, we're going this and we're doing that, and we're going here, and we're going there, and we're jumping over this fence and going here. But then when we wake up, what's happened to the dream? It's gone, isn't it? I mean, you can remember a little bit of it. What did you dream about 3 years ago? I mean, you can't remember. Like, what? We forget a lot of these things. And so are they real? Are the dreams real? Are they actually real? How can they be? They're there for a little while and we identify with them. And they're not even like this, like at least in the material world, this seems real. This seems as if it's real. But the kind of imagination that's going on is not really real. So many people here imagine things. We could say, in one sense, we're constantly daydreaming, a lot of the time. This person did that to me, and if he ever does that to me again, I got, we're going on. No one knows that. He's a very mild-mannered fellow, but in fact he's very inside. So all of these things, are they real? Now, if we go and do that, if we punch somebody in reality, we might have the Gorda Shield Corner coming down and take us in for a night in the cells or something like that, So there is a kind of, a reality, but in that sense, the dream is not real. So in a similar way, what's going on here is not really real because it's gone after this body's gone. It's finished. We may be remembered for maybe 1 or 2 lifetimes. In fact, one of my clients, her husband died, and they were both good friends of mine. They lived in Waterford, and their husband died earlier this year, and I went down to see Catherine. Now she's there, her daughter Orla, but when we were talking, it was actually as though Stuart was actually there in a sense, because we were talking about him, and we were very much alive to his memory and what he was like and his mood and everything, And he was a very nice person, very, very, very nice person, and that was great, and we actually there was a real buzz to that as well, because we remembered some of his good qualities and so on, but eventually, somebody who knew Stuart maybe 5 years ago and only sees him, heard about it, he passed away, and probably doesn't think about him again after that. Feels a little sadness. And then somebody who maybe worked for him 10 years ago said, and I may not even know that he died or whatever, So the memory kind of gets less and less and less and less. And then the people who remember that person, then they die, and then there's their grandparents die and whatever. So the memory is gone then as well. So who was that person? And the funny thing is that person who is in the body of Stuart has already gone into another body, and is actually starting a whole set of actions and reactions again, unless they're very fortunate to go back to the spiritual world. So therefore, the temporariness of this material world has to be always to the forefront. Another very important reason why it should be to the forefront is because in this material world there's no happiness. And that is the PR, the whole big PR machine of the material world, is that there is happiness here, Just a taste of martini is the beautiful. I can't remember the advertisement from many years ago. It's still there. I hope I don't remember that at the point of death. But these things, these jingles are sent in there all the time just to try to tell us that this place is wonderful. You walk up Grafton Street and then, soon it will be, look at our wonderful lights now. These are different lights, but these are different energy. These are kind of spiritual lights. But anyway, in Christmas time we have the lights in Grafton Street and Brown Thomas window. There's all these little, they used to have all these little things going on, little puppets and shows going on, and it was like, oh, it's magical, it's wonderful. So, so this is the PR of the material world that you can enjoy here, and I mean, if you look at all the adverts about cars, I don't watch the TV very, very little, but sometimes when I turn on the adverts come on, and there's the new Seat, the new Peugeot, the new this, and each one is wow, wow, wow. You'll be happy if you get this one. All these things are there. Or then we see the movies and we get attracted. I want to be rich. I want to be famous. I want to be this. I want to be that. Britain has talent, or Ireland's got talent. He's the best singer, and yet, when you see these singers, they're sometimes their lives are so full of so fraught. On the bathroom, and in the living room, there was this picture of Marilyn. And Marilyn is like, she's the symbol of enjoyment in the material world, but she fortunately had a very, very tough life. So this is what the material world is like. So this is what Bhagavad Gita is saying, that this world is temporary, and is saying to us that the happiness and distress, fame or infamy, honor and dishonor, they are just temporary coverings. Don't go for them. Don't make that your life. And it says that he who is happy within, who finds joy within, is the true mystic. And Bhagavad Gita is constantly giving us methods and giving us states of consciousness to which to aspire for, so that we can actually learn how to immunize ourselves from the pleasures and pains of the material world. And the ironic thing is that we cannot have one iota. Anyone knows what an iota is? It's one of the smallest measurements, I think it's the square root of -1 or something like that. I can't remember, something like that. It's a tiny,
Very minute.
a very, very minute particle, an iota. We cannot get one iota more of pleasure than we're meant to get from our karma. Can you imagine that? You go through, people in one sense, they go to different institutions to try to, to do better in life, and you have all these self-help gurus telling you, you must do this and you must do that, and you can all be rich. Everyone can be rich. You're only holding yourself back. But the reality is that you cannot get one tiny iota of extra pleasure than you are destined to have. Isn't that incredible? Isn't that amazing? So what are we doing here? What we're doing here is we're trying to find out our spiritual identity, because that's what the material world was meant to do. That's why it was made. That's why Krishna did. That's why Krishna did it. To experience so-called happiness. My experience is I'm getting more and more convinced that there's no happiness at all in this world. Although people say there is a tiny little bit here, or there's flickering happiness here or there, but it's so minuscule that it's not worth having. Because it only gets you to chase after it. That for that tiny little bit of pleasure, people were miles. It's really like the in the desert, the mirage in the desert. You're constantly running after, but it doesn't exist. But it looks really good. Like, wow, that looks amazing. But it doesn't exist. So we have to become fixed in that consciousness, fixed in that knowledge, so that we're not, attracted here and there. And that's what Krishna consciousness. That's what the whole idea. That's what the whole goal of yoga is as well, in that sense. Because what we do then, instead of looking outside, we look inside. And who is inside? This is 15:15. I didn't even get to this verse, but this is just in Sarvasya Chaham Hridisani Vishto Matasmitar Jnanam Apohanam Cha Vadayascha Sarveraham Eva Vedyo Vedanta Krit Veda Vedeva Chaham. Krishna says, I am seated in everyone's heart. And from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So he's in our heart, but who are we? And this is what Krishna says in verse 7. Mamevangsha jiva loka jiva bhuta sanatana manaksasten indiyani prakritistani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. So that's who we are. We're eternal fragmental parts of Krishna. We're not these bodies. These bodies are temporary coverings of these eternal fragmental parts. And these eternal fragmental parts are very powerful, and they are full of love for God. But in the material world, what happens? We're looking for love, we're full of love, but we're looking for it in the material world. And then Krishna says, because he's made it that way, he's made it in this way. Due to conditioned life, they're struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. And the word used is karshati, which means, probably translates it as karshati means is struggling hard, is struggling. Does anyone here ever have to struggle? You know, does anyone here wake up in the morning and the postman comes in and passes in, there's £100 for this, £1,000 for the day, just sit back and there and enjoy, you know, what would you like to see? Or does the alarm go up and say, I have to go to work? So that's what the hard struggle for existence is all about. You know, we may think that we're enjoying, we may think sometimes we're enjoying, but I was actually I met a very wealthy person the other day. I'd say he's a good acquaintance, and we know each other a little bit, and but he's extremely wealthy person, and but he's what I really like about him, he's a very normal person. He just kind of jokes and, you know, slags you off, and you slag him off a little bit. He's able to take a bit as well, you know. He gives and he takes, you know. So in that instance, he's very good. But he struggles like everybody else. He has, you know, his problems with his legs, and, you know, he's, you know, he goes through the same difficulties, and he seems to be having a good time in a sense, but then he has to go, and he's so many different companies, and he's in so many different shares and places. But he's always in anxiety about these things, you know. So he's also struggling very hard. But yeah, we're told all the time, if you're wealthy, then all your problems will be gone. You know? That's what we're told. And we go for it. We actually do go for that, you know. But yet, the ironic thing is Krishna, another name for Krishna is six qualities. One is that he's full of wealth. He has everything. He owns all the wealth. So we should go inside looking for Krishna rather than outside looking for the wealth. Because Krishna's in our heart. And he's talking to us all the time, but the difficulty is that we're not listening. Yeah. That's the problem. You know, and because we're too busy in the outside world looking for the thing, but he's all the time talking to us, but we're just listening to the outside, you know. So we have to learn how to start listening to the inside, listening to Krishna. So there, and Krishna, and this is incredible, Krishna says, and this shows you how liberal Krishna is. Krishna says, from me come knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Krishna will allow us forget him altogether. I mean, look at the atheists. You know, they're allowed to forget Krishna completely. Krishna doesn't even stop them. He says, oh yeah, great, you want to be an atheist, that's fine. You know, that's no problem. You can be an atheist. I don't exist. Yeah, I don't exist. Good. Go for it, you know. Because we have this desire to be separate from Krishna. It is ultimately the desire to be Krishna. We don't think there's anybody else in there. We only think it's us. Or just whatever going on in our consciousness. I was just talking with another friend last night about speculation. You know, it's something which we can be prone to. You know, we can try to work out what's going on, and it's our natural inquisitiveness. But Krishna already has it sorted out. It's the knowledge and the information is already there. We just have to become qualified to know what that knowledge is. And Krishna then he'll give us the remembrance. You know, he'll actually give us the remembrance then of who we are. And oh boy, is that, if you're talking about pleasure, that's pleasure. That's real pleasure. One of the greatest pleasures as well is when you share that with somebody else as well. Do you know when you're talking with somebody, you're talking about knowledge, and then something more and more, you kind of become more enlivened. Suddenly you wake up and someone else is talking, and you really get what they're talking about, and you're talking more. Well, when you can do that, and then when you can refer to the Bhagavad Gita as well, then Krishna's in among as well, and Krishna's giving you more and more information and more knowledge and stuff. So that is that's where we get so much enjoyment. Krishna says, there won't be one more dear to me than the person who shares this message. You know, so that's the area where we want to become. We want to go and share that message with others as well. We want to get that message ourselves. Do you remember the Harinam Ruchi guys who were here in town the last while? What were they doing? They were running around the town sharing the message, you know. They were just going here, they were going there, they were just, you know, we went into one place and it was called Murphy's Ice Cream. I was worried because I just thought everyone would get sacked or something. The boss saw the different the video of what was going on there. There's this ice cream salon, you know, and they had these tops on the ice cream. And the guys in there, they took the tops off and were playing the cartels with the tops of the ice cream. You know, we went in and they were all jumping up and down and Hare Krishna, you know, and we were all kind of going in there as well. So they were, anything they had, they were just joining in the kirtan, you know. So Krishna is. They have a very good PR. You know, they try to get around the whole of Dublin to tell people to chant Hare Krishna. But you know that's in the Hare Krishna movement. That's what we do. You know, and next Saturday, for instance, that would be a brilliant opportunity. You know, to share Hare Krishna. You know, with others, 10 hours. And you know, tell people that it's on, or ask your friends to come along to it, because it's just an amazing opportunity for people just to lose themselves, to forget about the material world, because what happens is they forget that they're this body, you know. That actually goes away, and then they think that they realize that they're the spiritual body. Sometimes when I'm chanting Hare Krishna and there's, you know, the chorus is there, and you know, I'm listening to, you know, what people are, their hearts, you know, and the joy that's coming from people, you know. It's like it's a real reciprocation then. It's my turn again. And then I have to get it back into it, you know. But it's like a constant, you know, it's a kind of a churning. It's like a churning. Did anybody remember Janananda Swami at the Rath Yatra? Janananda Swami. Janananda Swami's like, he's 70. But he's jumping up and down in the, you know, the Rath Yatra, and he's like, he finds it difficult to walk up the stairs now, you know, because he's kind of exhausted his body so much that he finds he has to go very slowly. But yet, when it comes into the kirtan, he's jumping up and down, and like at one point during the Rath Yatra, he was getting me, and he was kind of pushing me this way. He was turning me, and I was just laughing, you know, because he was kind of turning me to more, turn more, you know, and you know, he's been doing that for you know, 50, maybe 45 or 50 years or something, you know, and so that's where we want to kind of try to get to. I'll just I'm just going to finish the last few verses of the Bhagavad Gita. Like I could have gone on, you know, talking about different aspects of it, because there's just so much there. That's one chapter. but I stopped at 15, and actually I stopped at 13. Krishna says, because I'm aware of the time now, the splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, comes from me. So think of the splendor of the sun, that's all coming from Krishna. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me. So the moon and the energy and the light and so on. I enter into each planet, there's billions of planets, and by my energy they stay in orbit. So Krishna is giving the orbit by which they stay in. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. So the moon is giving life to the vegetables, those that we're taking, cauliflower, broccoli, all those vegetables. So Krishna enters into the moon and then gives the life to the vegetables. I am the fire of digestion in all bodies, but we're all actually digesting as we're talking here. We don't know about the digestion. And it's also, we're thinking about the feast time as well. The digestion starts faster. So that's Krishna. We didn't do it. We didn't make that digestion. But yeah, that's there. It's Krishna, and Krishna's giving us that. Yeah, it was when I was with our friends yesterday, and they made this really nice apple crumble with cream. That's a particular soft spot. Now they offered it to Krishna, and so it's this amazing taste, and they're very, very pure the way they do, and they offer everything. They do it in such a nice way. So they give it to God first, and then they give it. Then they spread it out. That's two ways in which friends kind of, they exchange by giving food and taking food. It's a very intimate form of exchange. They cook something for somebody. It's a very, very nice way in which you can exchange with somebody. So they made this, and it was so nice. It was so nice. I had to stand up from the seat. I went over and asked for more. I was already full, but still, it was so powerful. And that's that. But the fire of the digestion, it's Krishna is also there as well. By all the Vedas, this is it. And I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the four kinds of foodstuffs. So Krishna is also digesting also. I am seated, this is this verse again, I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. So he created all the scripture. There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible. Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them. So that's what Krishna, He's entered into the worlds. Little thing about the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, everyone is infallible. In the spiritual world, is fallible, and in the spiritual world, everyone is infallible. It's considered that most living entities don't leave the spiritual world. Only 25%, which is us, have left the spiritual world. So we're at the moment we're in a fallible state, but we're not eternally fallible. We can be eternally infallible again. So just that's the way Krishna presents it. So Krishna says again, because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person. Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata. This is the only reason Krishna is telling us his greatness is because we can really know who he is and who we are. That's the only reason. He doesn't need to boast to us. Don't worry. He's not some egotist who's trying to tell us, oh, I'm the greatest. No, That's the kind of thing that we do. He's just trying to give us that understanding of who we are in relation to God, so that we can actually work out who we are. And then the very last verse he says, "This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is today disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection." So, devotional service is doing this declaration. It is hearing about spiritual life. It is taking Krishna Prasadam, decorating the deities on the altar, giving a donation, bringing fruits and flowers, chanting. All of these things are, these endeavors are eternal. The other endeavors are not eternal, as I said to you earlier, in the material world, because we don't know if we did them once. We did endeavors in a body 1,000 bodies ago, and they're gone. They're like the dream, you know. Those endeavors are gone. But the endeavors in Krishna consciousness are eternal, and they won't be gone, and they'll never be gone. And that is why it's the most supreme, or the most confidential knowledge. We have to get ourselves into the situation where we're performing eternal bhakti yoga, eternal devotional service in relationship with God. And however we do it, doesn't matter. Just somehow or other get into that situation where every second counts, because every second does count. You know, every breath is important, and every blink of the eye is important. So that is the real yoga. This is called the yoga of a supreme person. That's where we want to get to. You know, where we're constantly endeavoring for perfection, and in Krishna, then, you know, he will see us as, you know, okay, I'll take you back, you know, because we can't actually get there despite all our endeavors. We can't actually get there, but when Krishna sees our endeavors and sees our seriousness, our sincerity, then he'll pick us up and bring us back, you know, back to the spiritual world. So that's the class for today. Hare Krishna. All praise to Srila Prabhupada. So is there any question anyone would like to ask? Anyone would like to bring up any other points? See, this is spiritual life here. Big king of the temple. Say if you, okay, I'll give you just one thing, is that say if you were just, you had to leave the room now at the minute, and then some guy's coming in and he asks you, what was that guy talking about in there? What would you say? What would you say to him?
Stop chasing material happiness.
Yeah.
Ignorance of bliss.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. That's it in a nutshell, yeah.
But how can you stop chasing the only thing you can perceive,
Yeah.
or something you can't?
Yes.
If you don't have a very strong belief.
Yeah. Then you have to develop a very strong belief. You know, it's from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So you do need to ask, or you need to share the company of people, devotees who are already practicing Krishna consciousness. I mean, you've already done it from before. You know, it's like, in your whole idea is we're just remembering some of these things, but I think it's important to associate with people who are very advanced in that sense, because they are burning. They're burning at a rate. You know, they're burning up all their previous karma as well. And actually, this is very interesting as well, because like a spiritual master, when you take initiation from the spiritual karma, he burns up all your karma from previously. You know, actually all the karma that you've committed for millions of lifetimes, an initiation, he takes it away. That's how powerful the process is. Now, he doesn't take, if you don't follow the prescriptions afterwards and then he draws the line. He's not going to start, I'll take a bit more there. What more have you got there, please? He kind of gives you the instruction how to live in this world. And so if you do that, that's on your own head be it, isn't it? But that faith, it's incredible that a little grain of faith is worth a ton of faithlessness. Because it's so easy not to have faith in one sense, especially in the world today, because it's full of faithlessness. That's Kali Yuga is considered totally. It's completely. You're surrounded by faithlessness, because every time somebody's trying to enjoy separately from God, that's faithless. And we associate with people all the time. Now, it's not their fault in a sense, in that they're to some degree innocent. They're trying to be happy, but they don't have the knowledge not to chase it in the material world. But at the same time, if we do associate there, we will take on that as well, take on their faithlessness. So that's the whole idea of the Krishna consciousness movement, is to create sanghas all over the world, so that people can come in and get that faith, and feed that faith, so that they can actually, make very firm direction, and so they're not disturbed by happiness and distress and pain, because that's what the material world is about. When you're faithless, like you have the Jean-Paul Sartre or Camus, these are the philosophers in France in the 60s and 70s. Everything is dead. I studied it in philosophy. There's no meaning to anything. Everything is just going to happen to you. It's death. You just have to tolerate it. And famous to find meaning in the meaninglessness. Yuck. But that's what's given out. That's the food for the materialists. They get. What does a pig eat? What does he eat? He eats stool. So that's what the material world is feeding. It's feeding people stool. Whereas Bhagavad Gita is like the highest quality nourishment you can get. So we have to try to get the taste for it. And is that what you mentioned? Good. So that's what he said when he was right. When you go out the door, that's what. So is there anyone else? What if they were told they go outside the door? What is that fellow talking about inside? Chant? What would you say? Okay, that's right. No problem. I probably had too much information. The Bhagavad Gita overload. Okay, thank you very much, everybody. So everybody has read their Bhagavad Gita for the day. One chapter a day keeps Maya away. It lasts for 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 8 minutes, and if you read it every day, you'll be happy in this world and in the next. That's the guarantee from Bhagavad Gita. So, everybody agree?
Yeah.
Everyone going to read Bhagavad Gita every day? I heard a few yes. Sounds good. So let's make a firm commitment for that. And if you haven't done a Bhagavad Gita, we have them here. You can buy one. You can give a donation, and take home a Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so now the next part of the program. I'm looking for who's going to offer the arti. Funny, I saw Sham here earlier. I should have sent him to. Is John here? Is it?
They're all downstairs.
Pardon?
They're all downstairs.
Yeah, I don't know if there's anybody downstairs. Do you know where Sham is?
Somewhere downstairs chanting.
Okay, maybe if you could, and so in the meantime we'll have everyone could stand up and we can have some kirtan.